just kind of die poor and alone, then the county will just turn over your body to a med school. There are some uncomfortable historical echoes here, especially the demographics.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
We have Ben Burgis. Ben, welcome back to the program.
Hey guys.
How goes it?
I am pretty decent. I, could only hear one end of the conversation, but while we were on break, I heard workers good, bosses bad suggested as like a possible topic of conversation. And, I'm down with that.
That's hilarious.
I didn't know you could hear that.
I'm open to it.
Yeah. So Adam is not familiar with Ben's body of work, and he was like, "Hey, what are we talking about this guy about?" I'm like, "I don't know, just whatever he wants to talk about."
I mean, no, I'm familiar with Ben in terms of appearances on our show, and I've heard Ben on a couple of other programs as well. I've always been impressed, and clearly a very smart individual. And I think I've read some of your work, perhaps in Jacobin.
Yeah.
But yeah, and also we're at how many hours into this thing now?
10 hours
at this point. So questions are revolving around just certain themes, and that's a recurring theme of our program, is that workers are good and bosses, they're not. They're bad.
Yeah. So I read, I've skimmed the article in Jacobin. I haven't read it in detail, sat down with it, but I know that you spent a lot of time working on this article, and you wanted to, you really wanted folks to hear what you had to say in this piece, and so I wanted to give you some space to do that. And the title is "Medical Schools Are Still Desecrating the Corpses of the Poor." That's a pretty,
wow.
That's a pretty catchy headline. What's the deal there?
True, yeah. So this is something that I basically know about because my friend Eli Shoup, who I knew, when I was living in New Jersey, right, when I was teaching at Rutgers the first time. She was a grad student there. Anybody who read my first book, Give Them an Argument, there's in the opening pages, there's a story about an anonymous person who's just referred to as a Canadian grad student. That's Eli. And she is now a professor at UT Arlington in Texas. And she's the co-director of this biomedical ethics center there. And in that capacity, right, she led this study that was published in JAMA, it's the Journal of the American Medical Association, about the use of unclaimed bodies at med schools in Texas. So there are a few different ways maybe of telling this story or setting this up, but probably the simplest one would just be this. That there are basically two ways that your body can end up not in the ground, but in a medical school being used to teach anatomy. One of them is that you fill out a bunch of forms to consent to have that happen after you die. The other one is that you're just really poor, and so you don't have assets that, can be then in a estate or something, can be used for this, and nobody's willing to step up to pay for your funeral costs. And then in most places, not everywhere, there are a few states at least that have banned this, but a lot of places, including Texas, I think the vast majority of states at least allow counties to do this. And, I don't think there's good data on how many counties actually do. The other way, then if nobody, you just kind of die poor and alone, that you don't have any assets, nobody's willing to come forward to pay for your funeral cost, then in a pretty shocking number of places, that the county will just turn over we'll just turn over your body to a med school. And, this is, like, and there are a few different things you could say about this. One is that there are some uncomfortable historical echoes here, especially when you look at the demographics. There's actually the like program manager of a willed bodies program at one Texas med school that I quote in the article, who said, like, as a virtue of the fact that they do this, that they use these unclaimed bodies, that it leads to a more diverse pool of cadavers than if they yeah, right.
Wow.
So
Holy shit.
So yeah, if you and in fact, I should say too that the obviously, it's hard to generalize without a lot more data, but the particular county that I was looking at in that case, that's Tarrant County. That's where Fort Worth is. That was turning over unclaimed bodies to this unclaimed bodies to this particular med school, where the program director said that they were touting as, like, because at one point this county actually had, before they got this contract with the health center at this university, they actually had been providing free burial or cremation to indigents who died in the county. And they said, well, not doing that is saving them $500,000 a year. And it's like, okay, maybe that sounds like a lot of money until you realize that the total budget of Tarrant County is 896.6, I think, million. And in fact, they just bought their sheriff's department a tank that cost like $345,000 or something, which in the article I linked to an article in the local press about this, where I think the headline is actually like a quote from one of the county commissioners who was objecting to this purpose. And, it's just, do you really need a tank? Or whatever, whatever you want to call it, a heavy armored vehicle. So, I think the amount of money involved is actually pretty trivial in a lot of places. And, you could argue, I suppose, that this shouldn't matter because, why do we care about this? There's so many injustices involving people who are alive. You're dead. You're not gonna, you're not around to care what happens to your body after you die. But I guess all I would really say to that would be, well, hold on. If that's true, why is it that middle-class people who want to donate their bodies to science have to fill out all these forms, right? Like, why is it that we think, why is it that we don't even harvest organs for like life-saving organ transplants if you don't check the box to consent to it, right? I mean, clearly we do believe as a culture, as a society, that, that people have some kind of rights to decide what happens to their remains. And, and I think our sort of normal concept of what we owe to the dignity of a person, treating them as a dead person and not just kind of as roadkill does involve, like giving them some kind of burial. And so it just seems to me that either we believe that or we don't. And if we do believe that, that should also apply to people who die poor and socially isolated.
Yeah, that is just such a gross story. I don't even know what to say to it. But I appreciate that you wrote about it. Has it been able to get the traction that you were hoping for? And it dropped on Halloween, which was, I think, a probably on purpose. But that was on purpose. I pitched that to Big a Day at Jacobin a while ago. She was like, "All right, you want to run corpses? We'll run it at the end of the month." But yeah, so it had already, gotten a bit in, the local press since Eli's study came out, and even a little bit before that, right? She did
op-ed about it in the Dallas Morning News. I think as far as I mean, certainly as far as her study goes, right, this is the first thing that's, that's been covered in, this is the first article, so there's been stuff about it in the Dallas Morning News and the Fort Worth Reporter. I think this is the first national publication to cover it in any way. This is, again, there's a lot you could say about, some of the history of this. And then something I talk about at the beginning of the piece is that, in the, the antebellum South, medical schools actually used to advertise to Northern students by, about the ready supply of cadavers, that was a, result of the peculiar institution. But yeah, that's, so it's one of these things that seems really eye-catching to me. Of course, it's, it's not like this is the New York Times, this is Jacobin. So, like who's kind of gonna take notice of it or not, I think we're just gonna have to kind of see over time.
Well, here's hoping that that it breaks through and there's something done about that, because that is, I mean, it is really pretty disgusting. We can
should say
go ahead.
New York, Hawaii, Vermont have all banned this, but as far as I can tell right now, those are the 3 states that seem to have.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.